Hi, I'm Eddy Ortega. I'm a producer at Phenomena, and we're here at PAX East 2018 showing off our game Luna. So Luna is basically a game about slowing down and calming down. So it's a relaxing experience where people can just come and kind of hang out. Pretty much the opposite of like bang bang, do a bunch of stuff. Like VR games are very stimulating nowadays, and we feel like there's space for us to have a game that's more relaxing and that feels a little bit more like childlike and storybook-like. So Luna has an element of fable and it has an element of puzzle in it, and it's a kind of a story about why the moon waxes and wanes with this little bird. So it's kind of a fun narrative. This game is probably mostly for ourselves. When Robin first came up with the game, she was encoding her own difficult experiences into a beautiful fable and an artful object. And so when that became the root of the process, every other person that became involved in the project also learned to put their stories into the game. And so we all kind of made a game that at the end of the day feels like it's about accepting ourselves and accepting the hardships that we deal with. So at the end of the game, actually in the credits, we all put a little quote that is meaningful to each of the developers, and it just shows just kind of how intimate the production really has been. So I started out in animation when I was in school. I went to a school called Ringling College where I spent a ton of time learning how to do 3D art, modeling, animation, all that kind of stuff. But soon after I found out that I just loved actually making this stuff. So I actually taught myself how to program. I ended up prototyping for Intel for some years, and that just kind of led me to the San Francisco Bay Area where I met Robin, I met Martin Middleton, which were both co-creators of Journey as well. And we just hit it off, and it was like a good opportunity for me to try producing. And since I had so many skills in different areas of game development, it felt like a natural fit that I could work with the team, and that I've been doing that ever since, and it's fantastic, it's wonderful. Obviously there's the token and classic, just Zelda Ocarina of Time and those adventure games of the 90s and Pokemon and all that stuff. But in the more recent years, I was really motivated by games like Journey, which was again made by some of the people at Phenomena, and Flower, and even Shadow of the Colossus. Just games that seemed to be sort of mainstream but really broke out of what the medium could do, and it felt like we could really have something special that talks about more than just distraction or action in general. So pretty much any games that had an artsy side to it, like indie games in general, have been a huge part of our sort of development career as well, because it's pretty recent. Luna was a game that was inspired from a lot of hardships, personal hardships from myself, Robin. Austin Wintory was the composer to the soundtrack, who made the soundtrack for Journey as well. And we were just really trying to create a fable that felt like talked about forgiving mistakes and accepting yourself. So in our game, our protagonist is this little bird who eats a piece of the moon, and it makes her sick. And the reason it makes her sick is that the moon doesn't belong in the earth. So in our game, there's kind of a story about the bird letting go and releasing the moon back to where it does belong, and healing the world in the process, and kind of reconnecting with her environment and the animals that live on Earth. So, yeah. I think it's easy to say that the game draws parallels to other games because of its puzzle elements or its sandbox elements, but there's no real direct inspiration to Luna that came from video games themselves. They're really mostly inspired by other arts and fine arts that we've seen. Our art director, Glenn Hernandez, he is a storybook illustrator himself. He illustrates children's storybooks. And so we wanted to be true to that feeling of being childlike and being playful. So it's more about the kinds of media in general that influence the game, and trying to appeal to the child in you and the child in, adults as well. So I would say the game really draws inspiration from media like storybooks and media like fables that speak about difficult topics in a playful and easy way. This is personally the first game that I'm involved in releasing, although it's not the first game that I've made. And it is also Phenomena's first launch title, but all the members of Phenomena have spent a lot of years making games. And like I said, our CEO has made many games in the past, like Journey, like Boom Blocks, Flower, and many others. The team actually shipped the game with only 5 members, which was a massive undertaking, but at our peak we had up to 7 people on the job, so we've had many different people come through in the history of the project, but never more than 7. The game actually took up to 4 years to finish because it started on iPad, which is a crazy story to go from an iPad game that was just 2D, still the same themes and the same topics, but just completely on like a flat screen. And then when we saw VR happening, we were like, shit, we gotta do this. So as a team, we actually decided to go into the VR realm, and that took us a number of years to just learn the ropes of VR and, you know, try all the hard things. At the time, the hardware was experimental, so we were really learning a lot on the fly. And that took us to a 4-year-long production. I myself only started on the last year, so when I arrived at the project, it already had a lot of history, which was a unique challenge because I had to latch on to those emotions and those conversations and pull from all that history to actually make it what it is today. And when you look at it today, it's actually a title that works in both VR and 2D. So we've actually come full circle and have a game that actually plays on both, even though you only have to pay once for it. I mean, the game was mostly built in Unity and using C# and Wise and other tools that are available pretty much to any developer. So yeah, I would say it's a C# game, I guess. We use most of the traditional software that's used in the industry. For 3D, we use Maya. For our engine, we use Unity. For our concept art, we used a mixture of just traditional arts and paintings and watercolors by our art director and Photoshop. And for production, we're just really lightweight. We've tried different tools through our history. We tried Strehlow, we tried doing it with Zoho, we tried doing it with all kinds of tools, and we always found that the best way was just to use a spreadsheet that was managed mostly by the producer. I learned everything new in making this game. I mean, shipping a game changes your life, especially if you've never shipped a game before. It's like you go from, oh, I could just do this in my garage, and making something that's just fun to make, it's like where it starts and there's a lot of love. But at the end of a production, it's just hard. You're making hard cuts, you're making difficult decisions about what should be there or shouldn't be there, and you're kind of making decisions that are emotional in such an intimate production. So I would say that if you're out there and you're trying to make a game, keep going, stick through it. You know, it's absolutely worth it to see your work out there, but it will be not easy, and that's part of the joy in when it actually is released. I mean, there were countless wonderful emotions that happened in the production, and they changed us all. I mean, people, when they started the project, you know, that weren't even engaged, that by the time the project got shipped, they had babies, or, you know, there were just all kinds of things that happen. Like, life happens in the middle of a production. So, of course, there's also funny times, like when we were making the gardening gameplay of Luna. We used to jokingly call it like space gardening, and our art director has curly hair like me, so we just said it's a Bob Ross game. So we would say he should cosplay as Bob Ross and just be like, oh, just painting happy little trees, this is what my game is. And that was always kind of funny in the production. This is my first time at PAX, and it is also Phenomena's first time at PAX East, but it's not our first time at other PAX events. We've also been to GDC and E3 and plan to go to many other venues. The experience has been absolutely thrilling and exhausting all at the same time. I mean, we flew from San Francisco the night before, arrived on a 5 a.m. flight. You know, office work doesn't stop, so we're answering emails and dealing with our office back home. It's really, really tiring, but it makes it so worth it when somebody comes up to you and says like, I love your game, it was a huge experience for me, or people have even shared tears just hearing about what the game is about and feeling identified by it. And so that's kind of irreplaceable, and that's the thing that would keep me coming back, to just show our games to fans on a person-to-person basis. So the best way to find out about Luna is to go to luna.phenomena.com, like the name of our company, which you maybe can see back here. Or just follow us on Twitter at Phenomena. That's where we post everything about our games and our new releases. Find the game on Steam, and just give us a shout out on Twitter or any social media, and we're out there.